Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Pablos Holman on the line. He's GP over at Deep Future. Pablos, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, man. This is fun.
All right, so I've been looking forward to this interview. Pablo's didn't even know this, but a couple months back, Michael, his partner and again a friend of mine, he came up to me, handed me this book, and I was like, "Wow, this guy looks interesting." And then I started to go further and further. I didn't even know Michael was gonna book him on the show, and then I got the email, and I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna have some fun." So I've been looking forward to this for a long time, Pablo. So we're gonna talk about, of course, what you're doing over at Deep Future and more. But before we do that, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Pablos, at Mission Matters, our aim and our goal is to amplify stories for entrepreneurs, for executives, for experts. That's what we do. Pablos, what mission matters to you?
I think kind of like you, my mission is really about trying to help inventors get their creations out of a lab into a startup, bring them to life. And the reason for that is because I think these new technologies are what can make a big difference in the world and help us solve big problems. And they need a lot of help. And I'm hoping that we can make the future more awesome by doing more and more of that.
Yeah, it's great. Love bringing on mission-based individuals to share why they do what they do, how they're doing it, what we can all learn from that. So good to have you here. Let's go back in time a bit here, Pablo. So, and by the way, do you consider yourself a technologist, a futurist, or like what? I don't want to say it wrong, but where did
I get
that
called a
start for
lot of
you?
dirty names. Um,
Where did that
but
start for you? When did you know you were gonna know that you were gonna go down this route?
well, I mean, I started my life, you could say, is computer hacking, and so,
So
I'm,
hacker, no, I'm just
and
no.
now I'm trying to hack everything but computers. But it's been a long road. But we do, these days I'm trying to, you know, figure out how we bring the technologies that can help us build a better future. So
Yeah.
so that gets gets a lot of different names, I guess. But
How did you know
yeah,
technology though? Let's stay in the beginning a little bit longer.
yeah.
How was it a fascination with technology? Was it a like how did you know that piece of it? That was just
Yeah, I got one of the first computers Apple ever made when I was, like, 9 years old.
oh, so it's that early. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I grew up in Alaska where nobody had ever seen a computer, and so it was a very bizarre set of circumstances, and because of that, I had to figure out how to do everything the hard way. No one could teach me, so I was learning how to code you know, by looking at assembly language and trying to reverse engineer it. So that's not recommended. But anyway, that was my start. But I just felt that I had this kind of superpower. I could see that the computer could do things that everybody else I knew couldn't do. And I wanted to help people see that. And I got to help put computers in a lot of places for the very first time. And
Mm,
that kind of hooked me on making, understanding that technology could make a big difference
mm.
and eventually started trying to bring other types of technologies to life.
Now, whether it was Alaska or otherwise, you started pretty young. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine that your peer group around you were all excited about technology and
No.
like what would like that had to be a different like
No,
version of childhood. What was that like?
yeah, nobody had seen a computer, but
That's
they
what
were
I
pretty
mean.
sure it
I
wasn't
can
cool.
imagine this little nine
Yeah.
year old coming up to me talking about like, what is this kid talking about? Go play with I don't know. Like go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, no, I tried to, invite girls over to my house to go to the basement to see my computer, which is definitely not the recommended way to do it. Um, but Revenge of the Nerds, I was right, and
Yeah.
eventually computers did turn out to be
Wow.
useful, and so we're still running on that.
All right. So random side note
Yeah.
derailed. Have you ever been to Alaska Speedway? I'm just so curious.
Oh, the racetrack?
Yeah.
Wow. Uh,
Lady, I'll tell you why I'm asking this question.
yeah.
Lady Track Boss, the owner, we published her. She's in one of our books. So shout out to
Okay.
Lady. I know, yeah, I don't get too many Alaska natives. So yeah.
Cool. I'll check it out. I haven't been to that speedway. I don't even know where it is. It must be, but it must have built it after I left.
Beautiful. The backdrop has, not to
Wow.
derail the interview, the backdrop is the mountains and everything else. It's
Well,
amazing.
everything,
It's a
everything in
short,
Alaska's backdrop is mountains, just so it's clear. But yeah.
Facts.
Cool.
Back on track. I couldn't let that one go because you just so before we go further into the conversation of what you're doing in deep tech and also how you're helping people, maybe start with a little bit of the background on Deep Future.
Yeah. So after, trying to build computer stuff in the 90s, I worked on, one of the first web development companies and cryptocurrency in the 90s and then AI in the late 90s. So I sort of had an early start on a lot of these technologies, but ended up helping to start Blue Origin in 2001.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of where I shifted from, building computers to using computers to build other technologies.
Mm,
And then after that, got to help start a big invention lab to work on deep tech inventions called Intellectual Ventures with
mm,
Nathan Myhrvold and Bill Gates. And we got about 6,000 patents on our own inventions there. So
jeez.
very large scale invention operation. And really what I learned through that whole process was just, that startups were the most effective way of bringing new technologies to life. And I wanted to make more startups. And so, with the venture fund, with Deep Future, what we do is we find inventors and we just help them get a startup going, and
Yeah.
that has been very successful and it's working really well. So we're usually the first investor for any kind of mad scientist who's got a real breakthrough and has made something special
Yeah.
that we think can make a big difference. And so we do lots and lots of them.
I want to go further into this, but what was it like being, before we do, I can't leave this one on the table. What was it like being in that type of environment to where there's that much going on that fast?
Yeah.
Just like that, I mean, that lab, like, what was that even just like?
Well, most people have to ship a product and serve customers and these kinds of things. We didn't have to do any of that. And
Yeah.
so we could just focus on inventing anything that we thought could be useful. And we were in a good position because we were able to hire prolific inventors and get them
Mm.
on our team. We were able to hire kind of one of every kind of scientist and put them in the lab,
It's
but
like
one
an
of every.
old school, like Thomas Edison feel in my
Yeah.
mind, in my imagination, it's an old
Yeah.
school Thomas Edison feel, but present day.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, that's what it's like. We were able to kind of acquire one of every tool in the world, put everybody on the same team. That worked really well. We're prolific inventors because that worked. But I think that we under commercialized. We could have made hundreds of startups, and that's not how we were set up. So now, what I try to do is find the people who really have already made important breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of those things that have been ignored by Silicon Valley. We sort of live in a world where we think it's full of technology, but the truth is it's just been full of software.
Yeah.
For 25 years, technology just means software. And there's so many amazing technologies that the tech industry's ignored because you can't do them with just software. And that's the if you think about things like food and
Yeah.
construction and manufacturing, mining, waste, uh, everything that every human on earth relies on, those are things you can't fix with just software.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're trying to do and what deep tech means and what we invest in is the technologies that can help with all those kinds of things.
When I think about your model overall, I feel like, and I'm going to make a generalization or two here, and you're welcome to correct me. So correct me and make it more specific. But when I think about like some of like I do a lot of interviews, different VCs, different things, and a lot of
Yeah.
times they might bring like a technologist or some really smart individual on a certain type of thing to like evaluate a deal or technology before they make that last decision to pull a trigger. Like internally, maybe they get to a certain point, then they're like, okay, let's make sure. But for your end, I have to times that times, I don't know what the multiple is, 100, because you're looking at like when
Yeah.
you talk about things like deep tech, like it's a whole nother level. Maybe start by defining deep tech a little bit more, but then also like what the brain power it is to actually think about when you want to actually commit capital. Because this is different than I feel the different model. And if I'm off on any of that, please correct me.
Well, I think the first thing to understand is most VCs are not going to invest at the stage we do.
Yeah.
You know, the earliest they might come in might be a seed round or a Series A. And they're finance oriented. You know, they need to see a spreadsheet. They're looking for an inflection point on a spreadsheet, a number that goes up. They need that kind of they need to look at, you know, contracts and revenue and
Mhm.
what the size of the market is and all these kinds of things that are really not possible to evaluate at the stage we invest.
Mm.
So when we're investing, we're looking at the technology itself.
Mm.
We want to know, you know, we can't invest in science projects. We want to know, is this ready?
That's a good way to put it.
Well, yeah, it's got to be
That's
the
funny.
science
Go
has to be
ahead.
done. We have to know that it's gonna technically it can work. We
Yeah.
can take what we would call like engineering risk. Can we? We're investing to find out if this thing can be made cost effective, whether we can get it done, and on a venture time horizon,
Yeah.
whether the unit economics are going to work out, this kind of stuff. That there might be questions about that at the stage we invest, but usually there's not a question about whether the fundamental technology can work. That's an error that a lot of investors could make if they get too excited about a technology, but the details haven't been worked out. We're usually not able to invest unless that's been solved.
Yeah.
But once it is, we're willing to go in, understand, and believe in the technology almost before anyone else could or would.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's what's different about us. And we're going to
When you
be
say the could you elaborate on that? Is it because
it's
of
because
understanding or just the mandate?
it's
Or
not that I'm
both?
the smartest guy in the world. It's just that
Yeah.
I got to work on so many different technologies
Mhm.
and I got to work with so many world class experts. I've got
Yeah.
Nobel Prize winners on speed dial here, so
Mhm.
I'm able to phone a friend.
That's my
Yeah,
point. It's a little different. I gotta say
it's
that.
a
You might
different
not
friend.
say that, but I know it's a little different.
Yeah, and that works for me because I'm not. It's a different friend for every deal,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically. But it's usually if I'm not deep enough in that particular kind of technology, I can get help and I can understand
Mhm.
the help and it can get help build conviction. The problem that a lot of people run into, maybe the nuance worth mentioning is it is very hard to invest in something if you don't understand it or you
Mhm.
don't feel like you understand it. And so the phone a friend thing doesn't really work a lot of times for later stage VCs. If you're a Series A guy who left Goldman Sachs and started a VC fund with your frat buddies, and you call your old college roommate who got a PhD in something to look at this nuclear reactor deal. It's still not good. It's just not enough to close the gap and help you really feel like you understand it. So those folks
Mm.
need to wait and see less technical risk. They need to see more business traction. And we try to deliver that. We're trying to help our
Mm.
companies get what I call venture compatible,
Mm.
turn themselves into something that can really work for a later stage fund. And that might later stage for us just means seed or series
Yeah.
A.
Yeah.
So, we're pre-seed funds. That's all we do. And some companies that's not going to be that hard to do. Other ones need more help, more time and more support. And that's just the nature of the kind of thing we
Mm.
do. Pretty
Mm.
unusual in venture, actually.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I had to bring that up. And just to take it a step further, maybe some examples of deep tech startups
Oh
that
yeah.
you're invested in or otherwise, like just some examples.
Well, I'll give you one example just because it's kind of the most obvious hit right now. When
Mm.
when we were at that lab I described before, we invented the most advanced nuclear reactor. It's called
Mm.
TerraPower, and if you ever see Bill Gates talk about nuclear reactors, it's a nuclear reactor that could recycle nuclear waste and use it as fuel. But we invented it in 2007 and so every year since then, I've been telling people nuclear reactors are coming. Every year I was full of shit until this last year. And the reason is the finally the U.S. government has gotten super helpful at making nuclear reactors possible. And so
Mm.
we invested in one, not TerraPower, but a different one called Deep Fission. And this is a nuclear reactor that's buried a mile deep in a borehole. So
Hmm.
it's unquestionably safe. It's super cheap to do. They can do it really quickly. The Department of Energy has been pushing them to go faster and faster. They should have
Mm-hmm.
the first prototype in the ground this year and the first commercial reactor, we hope, early next year.
Hmm.
So we were the first investors to ever look at that. Just because who do you call if you're doing nuclear reactors? It's not obvious. And we're kind of a lightning rod for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And and the company, I literally walked over to Nasdaq and we got to ring the bell a few weeks ago.
It's
So
amazing.
so that's going really, really well. That's what we mean by deep tech. Now, people may not know that nuclear reactors can be safe. They may
Mm.
not know that they can be cheap. And it's only because of digging into these technologies and understanding them for so long that we know where the pain points are and the things that have to be fixed in order for it to work. And so that's one that, I think it'll start seeming boring in a couple of years because
Yeah.
we're going to make, zillions of these things.
Yeah. What type of either LPs or just investors in general are typically a good fit or are typically attracted to the kind of work that you're doing?
Well, people gotta like it. They gotta like what I do, and in some sense, they kinda gotta like me. So that
Mhm.
limits it. Um,
That's
but,
fair. That's fair, though. That's
but
fair. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'd say for what we do, it's all individuals and family offices. We can't run a big fund
Yeah.
because we do so many deals already and we invest so early that we can't deploy a lot of capital. So we're limited in the size of the fund we can run, but turns out we haven't been limited in how successful we can be. So that's working out really well.
Interesting.
We do have, I would say, I think there's a chance that we could be attractive to fund of funds that want to look over our shoulder and co-invest as our portfolio matures. We have a one of those so far, and we might do more of those in the future. And then I would say, other types of institutional investors, especially if they're interested in deep tech for any particular reason already, we'd be happy to talk to them. But mostly it's, people who think that science is awesome and want to
Yeah.
want to do cool shit and build an awesome future and make
So,
a lot of money doing it.
so from your vantage point, and I'm gonna use your word, used it earlier, so I'm gonna use it. I've been wanting to use it. So, mad scientists, what kind of technologies, what kind of tech, what kind of comes like,
Yeah.
what excites you've been doing this a long time. You've seen
Yeah.
a lot of things. What excites you like right now? And I don't mean it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a specific company, it could be
Sure.
industry tech, it could be otherwise, but like what gets you fired up like right now?
Well, we have like 54 companies, so we've done things in almost every industry at this point. It used to say we don't do batteries because there's so many battery technologies. Now we did a battery. So so there's almost nothing we've
That's what
done.
happens as soon as you
Yeah.
say you don't do something, the universe makes a liar out of
There
you.
you
Go ahead.
go.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, we do it all. But I would say the most exciting thing at this moment is that, people don't understand the reason software was so successful wasn't because of geniuses in Silicon Valley. It was
Mm,
because of rapid iteration.
mhm.
You can have an idea for an iPhone app, draw it on a napkin, build it, ship it, scale it, sell it, do that two or three times in one career. And so you can iterate so fast on software because it's so cheap. It doesn't cost you to try something.
Yeah.
In every other industry, you got to iterate in hardware. So, for example, NASA had to blow up a lot more rockets than SpaceX did
Yeah.
because SpaceX designs their rocket and software. And so computers have gotten so powerful now that we can use them to model everything. We can use them to do most of the iteration in software and then build one. So so that's what's going on every Tesla is designed in software, crashed in software, tested in software thousands of times before they build a Tesla. Same thing for a SpaceX rocket, same thing for Boom's supersonic jet. Those kinds of things are happening all around us now, and we see it in every industry. So what you think of as AI, it's not about chatting. For us, AI is about using these computational models to be able to ask questions about the future, to be able to design for the future, to be able to explore these areas in science and technology that were too expensive to do
Mm,
manually. Now we can do them in software, and that's improving rapidly every single day. And so a lot of what we do now is really about using AI for science and engineering, using AI to to turn these things that used to look too capital intensive, too long and slow, we can bring them into the venture window. And we can do them in, the 5 to 10 year window instead of the 10 to 20-year window where they were not venture compatible. Now we can make them go faster. So that's why we can do what we do.
mm. That is exciting. I want to spend some of the time we have left here on your book. So let's start. What do you hope that the readers of your book will get from delving in?
Well, the book is called it's called Deep Future, but it's called Creating Technology That Matters.
Hmm.
And that's really, what I'm trying to do. And, I guess you said mission matters is the North Star for everything you're doing.
Hmm.
For me, uh, I don't want to waste my life or anybody's time building another ad network or something. I want to build the things that really could make a difference. If you solve something like energy, you solve a lot of other problems for free. You solve clean water, you solve recycling, you solve sanitation, you solve a lot of global health problems can be solved if you can make a lot of clean energy. So to me, bringing those kinds of technologies to life are what matter. And since I got to work on some of those before, I wanted to write a book about why I think that way, give people a bunch of examples of technologies that are coming that could make a huge difference, because you just build a sense of optimism about the future when you see as much of this stuff as I do. And then I think, it was important to load up the book with stories from my weird career and the things we've learned and things that didn't work and the things that did work. So it's a really fun book. I think, the best part has been, people telling me how they felt about reading it. And, I wrote every word. There's all the M dashes are mine. There's no AI in this book. It might be the last book
You
I wrote.
would you would actually use a real one. Come on, man. I expect nothing less.
There you go. It's a
In the real
real
world, he's
M
like,
dash.
I've
I
been doing
wrote
that
it
before.
myself.
I've been doing that before chat. Go ahead, please. I can't.
Jeez. And then I recorded the audiobook too. So if you like listening to me or want to feel like you're hanging out with me, then you can people like are enjoying that. So that's
Yeah,
it's really meant to be in some sense it's kind of the only book we have that's like deep tech focused maybe. There's probably others at this point, but it's a book meant to help people see, because a lot of people, I think, look, a lot of nerds would want to go build robots and lasers and nuclear reactors. It's just the only jobs for them were, in spam filters and, optimizing social networks and stuff. But that's changing now.
yeah,
And we need those people. We need everybody to help build these new kinds of deep tech companies. And so I think a lot of what the book is trying to do is just show people how they can help.
fantastic. Pablos, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show today, learning more about what you're doing over at Deep Future, your ideas around obviously the fund, and it's just been a lot of fun. Your book.
Cool.
That being said, if somebody's listening or watching this, they want to learn more about Deep Future, your book, Connect, and your ecosystem overall. How do they do that?
Well, a lot of what I'm doing is just picking the brains of smart and interesting people, just like you're doing. So the Deep Future podcast is a great way to, get in that room and listen along. Anybody can listen. You don't have to have a PhD to listen. It's a lot of fun. And then the book is, it's on Amazon everywhere there's books, and then Audible. And then, you know, my Twitter game isn't that great yet, but I'm working on it. Think how
Love it.
Twitter shit canned me for most of the last 20 years, but I'm starting to crawl my way out of that hole. So That works too, and then if you get on our email list, it's nothing but just inspirational technologies that are coming. Whenever we find a new one that we're excited about, we send it out to people to read about. I never send anything out to the list unless I think it's really going to be worth your while to check it out.
Awesome. For everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes. So you can just click on the links, head right on over, connect with Pablos. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Pablos, thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, man.